Hello, everybody. Is everybody having a good time so far? That's the way to hear it. Wait till this evening. Anyways, I'd like to welcome you here. I'd like to thank Randy and the crew and everybody for having us here as well. And one of the challenges that's facing us is the fact that 30 some odd percent of all SPD leadership could retire today if they wanted to. Oh, excuse me.
You're going to need a stronger drink on that one.
Oh, thank you, Jim. I told him I'd be good this time. That said, the way to address that, obviously, is to grow your own. And when we talk about growing our own, it's really selecting that shining star that's among us, somebody that's within your department right now that has the qualities and the traits and everything that you think they could be a leader. Where we fail and have failed historically is the ability to give those people tools to develop them so that they can succeed as leaders. And what you see is a migration then of leadership who have been self-taught from one facility to another, to another, to another. Reason being, the C-suite doesn't really know much about SPS. It's hard for them to mentor an SPS leader when you don't speak the language. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mentoring and what it takes to be a good mentor and what to expect from the mentoree and people that you can find that you would like to move forward with. Secondly, I'm going to talk a little bit about credentialing because we really have to be serious in the future about credentialing ourselves as SPD leaders. We can't rely anymore on the certifications that we've been used to for the years. As long as we continue to do that, other people are going to continue to manage and direct us as a subspecialty when we need to be directing ourselves. So that said, I'm used to all this. One of the things first I have to figure out when you decide to mentor somebody, if you're going to mentoring, is to look at some of the ethics that evolves around mentoring. You know, good mentoring has an ethical component. We know that. You have to respect the learner. You have to have the responsibility and take it for the learner and take that on. You have to be non-judgmental in that person, especially in their own way of life, their own style, their own beliefs, because you're developing a leader. You're not developing the person and their typical life's behaviors. And then confidentiality is always big when you enter into a mentoring relationship. Things might be said, they might be said out of context, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about building trust later. But you really want to know that what they say really needs to stay with you and not go anywhere else. And it's difficult, It's to do because as the learner reveals the behaviors, let's say the example is if they said they did something illegal in the past. Well, there's a lot of people that may have a storied past. They may have grown past it and stuff, but it's not something to be judgmental about or anything that. But the biggest thing is just pay attention to your own learning and development along the way and make sure that you discuss everything up front about your mentoring relationship and the openness about it. I tell everybody that I talk to before you enter into a mentoring relationship, both yourself and even the mentoree should do a SWOT analysis. Most of us everybody know what a SWOT analysis is. And if you don't, we'll touch on it briefly. But it's really SWOT is for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you do a self-analysis of your own strengths, obviously experience, talents, qualifications, but other strengths such as certifications, such as are you a transparent person? Are you an honest person? Those are qualities and strengths in people, You also have to identify your weaknesses, too, before you enter in. Do you have the best communicative skills? Do you have strengths in strategic planning and budgeting, and et cetera? So you might want to look at what your own weaknesses are and how you can develop as a leader before you start trying to train and lead someone else. And then look at opportunities that come up. A good sign of somebody who seizes opportunities just grows. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So there might be projects to work on, There might be opportunities for advancement. Many places offer tuition reimbursement, et cetera, or leadership programs. Take advantage of those. Those are opportunities that you're given, so you should. And then there's threats. Now, threats are factors in the environment that might limit you, okay, or hold you back. Some of the biggest threats I've found personally over history and in the workplace, in all honesty, is your direct report. You know, is it a good fit? You know, do you threaten that person? Many times you do, especially when you're the knowledge base holder of all the SPD processes and you're reporting to somebody that, again, knows very little about SPD except for what they learned out of a regulatory class. So that said, direct reports can be a threat, you know. The requirements for advancing yourself and getting credentials can be a threat as well because you're unsure of yourself. You know, geez, can I really take those classes? Can I really pass that exam? You know, can I pass that certification test, et cetera, you know. And those shouldn't be treated that way, but you should identify what's threatening to you as a person. And then after you've done that, you know, it's time to start mentoring as you develop, you know. And it's all based on your skills that you use and the approach that you take with individuals. You know, are you a coach? Coaching is good, but you have to reflect as well. And reflecting back on what you learned and what accomplishments you made as well during a relationship. You know, active listening, questioning skills. You know, most of you know all about this and stuff, but I'm just saying, you know, as you move through, you have to learn how and teach people how to conduct meetings, how to conduct yourself in a meeting. You know, take the time to stop and really listen. You know, make sure it's just you. Do one-on-ones. You know, we'll talk about a little bit later, employee rounding. You know, they talk about rounding for different things, but do employee rounding. You know, you should be inviting your employee to your office on a regular basis and sit down and talk to them. It doesn't take a long amount of time. But listen, open-ended questions. Find out what they really want to do. This is how you find out and identify who your star is going to be. You know, and then obviously you want to model behaviors. You want to model behaviors along that way too, especially in meetings. You know, take staff to meetings with you. It shouldn't just be a closed shop. Let them learn how to conduct meetings. Let them see how meetings are conducted. Let them see how you might act professionally in a peer-to-peer relationship or as you go up the tree. You know, a lot happens in the shop, you know, and our behaviors may be differently, but you put the hat on of where you're at. So you can also, part of mentoring is to let them know what skill set to use and what behaviors are required at what time. When you form a relationship, it's easy. The mentor takes the lead. You know, you build the contract, and we'll be going into that in a little bit too, you know. And then, you know, again, if you're identifying, the whole thing I want to push is if you identify that star amongst you, you know, you want to take the time to explore that person and their traits. Talk to them again. You know, is this somebody you can work with? You know, it's horrible to start a mentorship with somebody and then have it go sour just because it's somebody that you actually cannot work with. Some of us can't work with somebody. A whole bunch of people out there can't work with me. So building a mentoring relationship, again, you have to manage the process. And again, when you do that, put it together, get everything up front. I'm used to not pushing on this. So when you do that, you want to develop a contract in your relationship, you know, and sit down and review that process every step along the way as you move forward. And by establishing a contract, what you want to do is, you know, establish the time frame and stuff. How long is this going to be? How long are you going to work together? Establish what your goals are going to be. Those be both short-term and long-term. What is long-term goal? The long-term goal, especially for leadership, is that person's going to step in and fill your shoes. Maybe not yours. Maybe they can fill the shoes at a sister facility. Maybe they can fill the shoes of somewhere else down the road. But it's their career you want to help them develop. And believe it or not, as you develop other people, you develop yourself. you gain so much confidence in yourself that maybe you didn't have before. And that's what you want to see out of people too. Again, practical arrangements. When do you meet? Where do you meet? You know, I always suggest you set those established meetings up. You conduct them. You set the ground rules too. You know, if they're not going to meet with you and can't show up for meetings and blah, 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 well, maybe you have to relook at your contract and relook at your selection, you know. So anyways, as we move on, the biggest thing is what's next. You know, what happens next in the relationship? It's all right to make mistakes. And it's all right to let your mentoree make mistakes. Don't always be just guiding them and telling them what to do and they have to do this, so they're really just doing what you're telling them to do. And you don't want that. You want to listen to them. You want them see what's important to them. They might have an idea, and generally can have an idea that you already know is going to fail because you've done it yourself in the past. It's something you did. You laid out some things for them, some choices for them to make, but they decided, by God, I really think I should try this. Well, that's what helps develop them. They fall flat on their face, and you knew they were going to, but you say, oh, I told you so? No, never. You know what? They will come to you and say, you know what? You were right. You know what? I could have done this differently. How could it be done differently? Well, we grow from mistakes, because I've made a lot of them, and hopefully you grow along the way. That's how you know. That's how you see it coming. And you all know what I'm talking about. Reviewing along the way and ending a mentoring relationship. You know, you really want it to be successful and all that, at the very least. And then you got to establish what's clear. You know, each time you meet, what are we going to do next? What's the next step I want to see you take? You know, like I said, it might be starting with going to meetings, having them actively involved with meetings, you know, but each time you sit down, set your goal for the next week. What are we going to accomplish next? How long is it going to be? You know, let them also be the driver of what happens next. What direction do you want to take? They might want to take a direction you didn't even think of. And the next thing you know, it's really good. Because again, it's a learning. Everyone's unique and everyone's different. And you should be learning just like them. Oh, we're not done. Finally, as a mentor, you need to remember that you too are always learning and developing. It's kind of what I just touched on. Ask the learner for feedback on your mentoring style. What can you do different in your mentoring style? You know, what's nice is you grow as a leader, but so does the mentoree. You know, you can learn a lot from the grasshopper. You know, it's what I like to tell people. I don't know how many people grew up with Kung Fu, whatever the TV show, but I kind of like that grasshopper thing. You know, especially on your style, you know. And you're not going to be a good mentor if you're not flexible, you know. You've got to take the criticism, you know. You've got to develop from it too, you know. So anyways, communication is the number one issue, number one problem that leads to a lot of things. So a little words of warning. I don't know if I like that choice of words, but it's there. I think just advice, you know. What works for you is the biggest thing, you know. It's harder learning to mentor people if the relationship, again, as I mentioned, isn't working, you know. You know, it's not me, it's not my fault, it's not this. But, you know, whatever it is, you've got to go ahead and plan. And sometimes you're wasting the mentoree's time and you might be wasting your own time. So some mentoring contracts just need to end instead of taking it forward. Some people aren't meant out for it, but they gave it a try. That doesn't mean that they're unsuccessful in what they do, but sometimes we do look to promote the wrong person, you know, and then we suffer. So many places I've seen where we're taking the best orthopedic nurse in the OR and decide to make them the manager, you know. They have no management skills. They didn't get mentored. If they were mentored in a program, you probably would have identified somewhere along the way that this wasn't going to work. This person just isn't good. But by God, what did they do? That person they let go. You know, now you're out twice. You just have no manager again, and you lost the best orthopedic coordinator that you had. So I don't know why we can't be accepting of those things and allow people to move back into the positions or the task and skill set that they did best. We don't do that a lot, and we should. Trustworthiness. To me, it's key to everything. You have to have someone's trust. You know, if people don't trust you, they're not going to respect you as a leader. One way to get it done is by giving them some choices to rule their own roles. You know, you can do that through unit consoles. You know, I try to redirect people's energies back to what affects them. You know, the OR's doing something that drives them crazy. You know, develop a team and work with that. I'm a big believer in unit consoles that can define their own roles, make the decisions on their own work that they do, the tasks they perform, the duties, etc. When they talk about unit consoles and giving shared governance, they usually say, okay, you can self-schedule. Okay, all right, a machine can do that, you know, and etc. That's not really what we're talking about. You know, give people the ability to actually make the decisions and participate in the decisions in their own role. As a leader, you have to give up some of that stuff so that it can so that they can accomplish it. You know, open up and share stories. You know, everybody knows me, and some of you do. You know, I love to tell stories because one, they relate to it. And as you tell your story, they actually know that you're credible and knowledgeable about what you're talking about. You know, you're stepping along and speaking the language that they speak every day. You cite instances that have happened to them. You know, again, you didn't go to a class and learn something and then go and try and tell them what to do. You know, storytelling always works, at least for me, you know. And then spend time with your team. You know, you think, gee, I see so many leaders won't sit down and have lunch with their staff. Now, many think, again, it goes back to ideas that, gee, they probably don't want me at their lunch. You know, I'm invading their time. Ask them, you know, do you mind if I sit down? I know it's your time, your lunch time as well. They'd love to have you sit at their table. You know, they'd love to have that interaction with you as you look at that. You can recognize them, you know, on a personal basis while you're looking at that. And again, like I said, rounding and meeting with them. The more you talk with them and the more you're visible with them, the more you work with them, you know. I've been a strong believer in years. I never quit riding the bike. I just scrubbed a case last week. I haven't worked in a burn center in many years. But you know what? I knew how to put that mesher together. I knew how to get that skin graft ready for that doctor. So I just never gave that up. As a leader, you want to take the time. You can't mentor if you don't know what you're talking about. You know, you got that free time, stop and think of it. If you went and gave lunch breaks, do you know how much that would mean to people? You know, help stay late. Oh, I stayed late because they worked late last night. Yeah, they stayed in their office. When I go as a consultant, it drives me crazy how much time leadership spends in their offices, you know, and stuff, when they could be out there. Put a set together. It's not going to hurt you. You know, spend an hour. I challenge every leader to spend an hour in decon. You'll come out sweating more than I am right now. But anyways, I mean, but you have to do these things, folks. I'm just telling you. It's how you get their trust. They respect you, and they'll stay. You know, they'll do anything that you ask of them usually. And if you don't spend time with them, you can't identify that shining star. Another thing you have to do is learn how to delegate. You know, give up stuff. You know, let them take care of things. Some delegate the wrong things. You don't delegate your duties and responsibilities as a leader. Even in a mentoring program, delegate a learning experience for them. Well, I'm going to develop this person to take over when I'm gone. I'm going to develop this person so I can go on vacation. Yeah, you teach them a bunch of tasks. You don't give them any other information. You share very little. Well, just do it. I told you to do it this way. No, let them take on things and teach them the skills that you need to do. Some people, for example, some people when they're self-governing may say, geez, we have leads. I want to be a lead. Well, not everybody could be a lead, we know that. But why not rotate leads? Who says it has to be a fixed position? I don't know. If you want my opinion, I'd rotate half the managers. But anyways, let alone the C-suites. Sheesh. And feedback. Everybody likes feedback. If you don't like feedback, you got an issue. I love feedback. Some of it cracks me up, but I think, did I really do that? Am I really like that? Yeah, I mean, excuse me, but my voice is a little thing. Did I really drink a drink during a talk? Damn, can't wait for the boat. But anyways, I know that Goheen's a little different. But anyways, people react differently to feedback is all I'm trying to say. When the keys about giving feedback is focus on the behavior, not the person. Teach the person new behaviors. Teach yourself new behaviors. I told him I didn't want to drink this year. I don't have a drinking problem, okay? I can drink just about anything. And I don't drink and drive. I only drink at the red lights. So that said, be specific and clear about that. I guess I wasn't specific enough. I was clear enough because, by God, it is a fireball. Blew my sugar pill for the day. And the biggest thing is give it in real time, just like right now. Give it in real time. Don't wait. Don't sit on things. People say, I'll approach them later. No, talk to them now. You should do that yourselves, too. You got an issue, don't get a tissue. Address the darn thing. The sooner the better. Do you know how much better you feel afterwards instead of stewing on things? That just doesn't help. It makes things worse. So, practice makes perfect because you have to build on the skill. That's all you have to do. The more you get, the more you receive. Ask it from your peers too, not just from your staff. And again, one-to-one meetings. I've talked about that. I'll continue to talk about that. You can't meet enough with your staff, in all honesty. And I like staff rounding. And that's what I call it. Set your schedule up. Post it on your door so people can even see, when you first started, it's a gas because what's he want to talk to me for? The instant reaction is, what did I do wrong? And then they all start talking. See, communication is key in departments, so you want to teach them how to communicate. So push their buttons a little bit to get them started. Post that list up. Oh my God, he wants to talk to you at 11 o'clock. What's he going to say to you? And you tell them stuff. You're transparent with them. You don't have to hide things from them. Tell them something you're thinking about. Next thing you know, they go, oh my God, can you believe he's thinking about this? Oh, he must have listened to us. Oh, well, what's he going to talk to you about? It gets them going. And it lets them understand, that you care about them. You do listen to them. I call it wellness checks, too. It's another term I use. Do wellness checks on your staff and yourself. It's better than feedback, huh? But anyways, am I at the right thing? Oh, we're going to go on for a second here. Now let's talk about why we need to develop our leaders. I mentioned this when I first started talking. As you can see, 32.5, so call it a third are in their late career. I'm past that. But what that really tells us, that demographic, again, is that 1/3 of leadership can retire tomorrow. And where would we be? In all honesty, would be at the mercy, in a lot of respects, it's of someone else. Where would your staff be? That it be at the mercy of them just picking somebody, or somebody, I would like a promotion, blah, blah, blah. And again, we haven't prepared anyone along the way. We prepared them how to make the schedule. We prepared them how to do payroll, but we didn't prepare them how to lead people, Sterile processing managers by skill sets and how important it is to an increase or the salaries that are given. This is an interesting data that I dug up. The green is what's positive towards building your salary, or what is important to the C-suite in their opinions of what skill sets they're willing to pay for. And as you can see, it's operating room experience, and that's why we see a lot of OR techs and et cetera and this and that. But I don't agree with that. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But people that can develop the skills for writing policies, procedures, et cetera, being cognitive of process improvement processes, like your lean and everything you're starting to learn in many places in that. Operations management. Now, where I disagree is I think we do need to focus on people management. Now I have a different definition of it. This is people management as far as just telling them what to do. No, I think, to me, people management is interacting with them, and getting them to manage themselves. So maybe that's somewhere else it fits in. But these were based on surveys to who SPD reports to. This is the most recent demographic for salaries based on years of experience for leadership in sterile processing. It can vary from place to place. This is mostly established on somebody with a bachelor's degree as a minimum requirement. We'll touch on that a little bit too. So if you're not making $72K as a manager, you're not old enough yet. And I don't agree with this. A lot of this is systemic through the system of how many years you stay at some place. But you can hire in. But it's just to establish of where some salaries might be, and if not, where they need to go. But that is based on that's very recent. So you look at your requirements. I'll go off the slides because I do. But these were just 2 job postings I pulled up. And these were recent. UVA had a job posting. Now it's academia, so we have to remember that. So what's academia into? Credentials, they are. We know that. So the VA's academia, in many respects. That's kind of their model. I only know. You guys all know I retired out of there. But that said, you can see the differences here in the requirements. Bachelor's required, master's preferred. Only 3 years experience. Flip side, we go to a community hospital. Anybody here from California Pacific? Maybe you just got hired? No. But anyways, it's, they want a high school diploma, which is what is the minimum required everywhere, I guess, and in a lot of places, even for leadership still. But a bachelor's preferred, and we'll talk about that. But they at least want 5 years of experience, a little bit more than the 3 years. And of course, everybody wants the license and/or certification. Many of the states are licensing, and everybody does want certification. Somebody told me, well, just say, I was OJT'd or whatever, or I was an OR tech, and I went to work in SPD, and I missed grandfathering, whatever. I'm not certified. I didn't want to be certified. Again, those threats and everything may have kept us from wanting to do that, or our own fears. Regardless, hospitals require certification now because their liability carriers require it. That's the number one reason. So as people ask me, so I'm answering that question. The insurance carriers that provide that coverage for hospitals are requiring the certifications now for their employees. So that said, when you look at professionalism versus technical, Profession. You know, I have my own definition of professionalism, especially professional demeanor. So I'll tell you that. To me, professional demeanor means the more professional I get, demeanor I get. Okay? I mean, it just is, you know. I mean, there's a place to be professional and not to be. CtUC is not really a place to be real professional because we're family and we want to learn from each other. You need to communicate and network while you're here. It's what you're mostly here for, in all honesty. But let's look at that. On the technical side, you're going to have certifications. I was no RTAC. I'm also ISHM certified as an SPD tech. I'm also ISHM certified in leadership. That said, certifications keep you in a technical mode. They keep you in a technical label. When I first went to nursing school, they told me that I was a technical nurse because I had an associate's degree. And some states actually were looking at 2 licenses. One is a technical nurse and one is a professional nurse. A professional nurse had a baccalaureate as a generic-based education. So what pushes that professionalism? It's credentials, and it's credentializing yourself. When you credentialize yourself, it's what we saw in nursing, as we move and advance through degrees, or you've seen lawyers in the past, you think of professionals. Well, they get credentials because they lower their numbers. And when you lower the amount of people and increase the requirements for it, credentialize yourself, it drives salaries up. It drives a professional status up. And that's what occurs. I didn't want to fool around too much here because I told them I'm really serious about this. I talk to staff after I go into hospitals and do interim leadership, replace somebody that left or whatever. But the fact is, if you don't get the credentials, somebody else is going to lead you. If you as SPD leaders and SPD staff even want to continue to rely on technical certifications as your mainstay, somebody with that master's degree in some other profession is going to run your department. So let's stop giving it up. You know, it's time to get those degrees. It's time to get our credentials. When you look at some of the highest paying jobs in SPD, such as Emory, some UCLA, when you look at some of these places where they do require a master's degree, they're paying 6 figures to some individuals to run those departments. You're getting the same pay as a perioperative director. You're running an SPD with 140 employees. You know, you've got 6 managers, 2 directors under you. You might be a VP of SPD. So we've got to build for the future. And so when we talk about building leadership for the future and being prepared, we've got to prepare ourselves. And that's what I talk about when I talked about role modeling, you know. It's not easy. I'll say that, you know. I worked 2 jobs to get through my master's degree, and it took a lot of time. But I did it because I wanted to go into leadership and maintain a leadership, and I wanted to command a higher salary, you know. And so I just wish I could impress upon you guys more than anything is to get those degrees. Look at the tuition reimbursement programs. Look at outlets. Look at whatever opportunities there are, you know, to get those or not. Look for an employer who wants you to get those. That's what I did way back then when I went to work for HCA. And one of the first things HCA told me, it says, we'll pay for your master's. You know, okay, well, it only pays for so much, you know, but I could use that as an excuse not to do it or whatever. pick up a little part-time job, help pay for that. It's just a decision whether you want to make it or not. I just think we have so many shining stars in SPD leadership, and we've shortchanged ourselves, by not moving forward and advancing our own profession, because I believe it is a profession and it's not just a technical program. So that said, I touched on certification. Almost all of you know the requirements and should know them, but do get the leadership certifications. They're available. I don't know how many are certified SPD leaders in the room. Come on. Yeah. Do it. There's nothing holding you back. If you run a NOR and you're a leader, or you run a SPD and you're a leader, you're going to pass the test. You can take the program. But right now, that's one of the credentials that's offered, so do it. I highly encourage people to do it. Because there's many career paths. It's not just working in a hospital. You can take a management track, which I've talked about, and would like to see people go to, moving through lead, supervisor, manager, director, VP. Really, there's levels there. But the way we go with tracking systems and technology nowadays, you can become a support IT specialist. Those jobs pay between $80,000 and $100,000 a year in most places. Industry. You can go to work for industry. You can go to work for census. But there's many industry applications for people. Sales support. How many SPD folks do you see actually even become a sales rep, let alone or an associate? Working especially with the orthopedic companies and the neuro companies, et cetera. And or consulting. You get your credentials, you get your certifications, and the consulting world is very lucrative, in all honesty. And it's a career path that people can take. It doesn't have to be an end-of-career path, I started consulting many years before I retired. I went to the VA as a consultant originally from the AORN. Nobody else would do it. Aaron sent 2 people in. The longest one lasted 4 days. So I got a call and said, Tim, can you go back to that VA and do the interim job? So I did. You know what? I fell in love with the mission. The VA doesn't do anything in a short period of time. Back then, management and leadership contracts were 30 days, maybe 45, never more than 90. VA wanted 6 months, of course. So it was hard back then for people to commit to that. But I did. They asked me to stay another 6 months, pulled my time, ended up retiring. So I'm just saying, you don't have to wait to do that in consulting. I work with 3 or 4 SPD consultants. I'm on project. I have associates, so I do utilize. They do get an excellent compensation package. So it's just another one of those career paths to look at. But the ones I use have a minimum of a bachelor's, 2 of them, and the other 2 have master's degrees. 4 to 6 months, they make as much as they made in a whole year. So the only thing holding you back is yourself. But I just want to say one last time, get the credentials. Thanks for listening to me. I do ramble on and on. I love coming here to talk to the group. I'm SPD at heart. I'm an OR tech at heart. And I never forgot how to ride the bike. So any questions? Go ahead. I know. Let's go get ready for the boat. How's that? Thank you for all you do.